What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Okay, had to do another one on the vacation day. Just got done listening to an interview with on 78 Sports TV's channel. Shout out to 78 Sports TV for the great interview that he did with Deontay Wilder, where he discussed a variety of issues around Deontay Wilder, the original offer that was made by Eddie Hearn to Deontay Wilder, then the $50 million offer, counter offer, and now what Deontay Wilder said he's willing to accept in order to make the fight happen. But most importantly, some things that Deontay Wilder stated about what is to me is obvious at this point, which is that Anthony Joshua is a manufactured champion. And by that I mean he's somebody that was, that Eddie Hearn and Barry Hearn and Matchroom got behind, and they were very, very strategic with his career, and from the beginning were determined to make a big star out of Anthony Joshua, and are more concerned about the image than what he actually does in the ring. And this the way that these negotiations have gone, in my opinion, it's absolutely crazy. And Anthony Joshua, in my eyes, and that's just for what it's worth, it's my opinion. There's a lot of people that, want to act as if, their opinion is more than an opinion. And that's all it is. I'm just telling you what I see when I look at Anthony Joshua and the way that this fight is playing out. And I'm in 100% agreement. He's basically just, he's a corporate creation. To turn down first, it seems to me that every step in the way in this fight has been from the matchroom boxing, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua side, has been to not make the fight. What they really wanted to do to start off with is they wanted to make Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder. That's the fight that they want to have happen. Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder. They did not want, it's not in their plan for there to have been Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. And I don't believe today, if something turns around and this fight happens before this Povetkin fight happens, I'll be surprised. And hey, I'll say, well, something changed. I thought it was going to change when they got offered $50 million guaranteed. But Anthony Joshua now said something else. And shout out to Blue Blood Sports TV. I watched another video that came out from him where, he said that Anthony Joshua said he doesn't want to fight in front of a watered down U.S. crowd. He's used to fighting in front of 70, 90,000 people. He doesn't want to fight in it's excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. First, it was after we got past this whole, fight Dillian Whyte, let Dillian Whyte, make your biggest payday ever off of Dillian Whyte, right? After we got off of that conversation, and it finally did finally start shifting to actually talking about Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, which coincidentally really started kicking off once the WBC said ordered that Luis Ortiz fight. Then all of a sudden, in order to get that shot, he'd be willing to. Well, first Deontay Wilder said he'd be willing to fight Dillian Whyte if he fought Luis Ortiz, and then the WBA made Luis Ortiz that mandatory, and all of a sudden, Dillian Whyte. Made the title eliminator, and then all of a sudden, Dillian Whyte is not so hot on going the WBC route. But once we got past that, the first initial offer with $12.5 million flat fee. I mean, that's just an offer that somebody is expecting you to reject, because it was $100 million fight, and it was an 88. That's an 88-12 split. And Deontay Wilder had originally said that he would take 60-40 and go to the UK. The whole talk about it being in the United States didn't even really begin until after that first ridiculous lowball offer from Eddie Hearn to the second one where Anthony Joshua asked for something he never thought he was going to get and got it, right? Then all of a sudden, it's, hey, now Deontay Wilder saying, yeah, man, in the United States, that's the only way you can get that $50 million. But in the interview, Deontay Wilder said, man, he's saying exactly what I was thinking. He was saying, look, man, it would have never come to that. I would have taken him in the UK to begin with. I would have taken it in the UK to begin with. He said he would challenge. He would travel. But it's just excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And I guess that's just the heavyweight division is just, the property of, well, 3 of the belts are just property of casual boxing fans who don't know better because that's their champion. Anthony Joshua, I have not heard very many people at all who are serious about boxing, who are avid fans of boxing, either in the UK or in the United States, that have supported Anthony Joshua through this nonsense. He's looking. I get messages all the time from people in the UK. They'll say, "Hey, look, don't say UK fans, say Anthony Joshua fans, because we're not supporting this nonsense. We see how he's acting, and the way that he's behaving is ridiculous." And it absolutely positively is. And it's just such a crazy juxtaposition between looking at what, I did a video earlier today about Jack Johnson, a guy who, the first black champion, heavyweight champion, who was basically kicked out of the United States for having dared to win the heavyweight championship. Had to fight on the road in Europe, right? In a bunch of back halls and, whatever in Europe, scraping pennies together, keeping the heavyweight, to keep the heavyweight championship of the world. And then to look at that and see that Deontay Wilder, goes to the White House for the official pardon of Jack Johnson 100 years later. And now, at the same time, on the other side of Deontay Wilder, is this pompous excuse-making media creation in Anthony Joshua. Who would have thought that there would be a guy from the UK that would dare to say something silly like, you give me $50 million guaranteed, and hey, I'll sign that tomorrow. And then he gets it. And he says, oh, I'm not going to sell my belts. I'm not going to sell my belts for money. I'm here for the fans. I don't want to fight in front of a watered down 6,000. I don't think he even said 6,000. A watered down US crowd. I'm used to having people come into stadiums and watch me from nosebleed seats 150 yards away. Yeah. Whatever, man. What an absolute joke. But it just, where is boxing going, man? I've never seen anybody like this guy. He's not that good. First of all, he's not that good a fighter. There's been other media creations who are very, very, very good, who are very good fighters. There's other corporate monsters that are also very good fighters. The two that come to my mind are Oscar De La Hoya and Sugar Ray Leonard. I think those are the last two guys that I were like, you know what? There's clearly promoters. There's a promoter, Bob Arum, who's really trying to grow these people and, get them in a situation where they're the gigantic moneymaker right off the bat, because the promoter's making the most of the money, not the fighter, and which is with Anthony Joshua. Trust me, I don't believe a word that they say about that money when you're dealing with Eddie Hearn, because you can hardly believe a word that Eddie Hearn has to say about anything. He lies like a rug, and he does it just as easy as possible. The lies flow off they flow off of his lips just, man, like water off a waterfall. Easy, no resistance. Just straight out his mouth with some stories. So, but you expect that from, from a guy like that. But a fighter, I don't. But, as far as what Deontay Wilder had to say, Deontay Wilder again said, look, for 60-40, I'd do it. I'd go to the UK. Yeah, I'd go to the UK. I think I had a hard time listening at the very end of that, of the interview. But he said, yeah, with 60-40, we can go to the UK. But what is that? Where does that lead us? That puts us right back where we were before. That's where we started. We started it asking for 60-40 and the fight being in the UK. There was no doubt that the fight was going to be in the UK for 60-40, not 88-12. So here, man, it's just like a big, long walk around the block, man. A big, long walk around the block. And while we're walking around the block, Dillian White trips over a rock or two because now he's either going to have to fight for a little bit of money against Pulev or he's going to have to go get beat by Luis Ortiz. But, it is what it is, man. Some of the other things, it was a really great interview. I'm going to put the link in the description box. Definitely listen to what he has to say. I really did think it was an excellent, excellent interview. And I love the tone that Deontay Wilder had about, just the silliness of turning down $50 million and what type of advisor you could have that would advise you not to. How do you get that out of your mouth if you are truly looking for the best interest of a boxer? Where you can make twice as much money as you can in any fight. You're making the biggest guaranteed purse in heavyweight history. And a bigger purse than you'll ever make in the UK. There is not a chance in hell of Anthony Joshua ever making that much money in the UK. But the way that he could make, I'm sure what the advice is look, we'll give you 3-4 more fights that aren't going to be any risk. That's also what Eddie Hearn said in this. Why take a big risk when you can fight for no risk? And then that's co-signed by Teddy Atlas. They need to go to prison or they need to be arrested. Joshua's handlers need to be arrested if they put him in there with with Deontay Wilder. Is it that obvious? Is it that obvious that to the people on Anthony Joshua's team and to Deontay Wilder on Anthony Joshua's team and to Anthony Joshua that he can't win that fight? Because that is the only logical reason for what's going on here. And if he can't win, and if he doesn't believe he can win the belt, he can win the fight, just say it. Don't just not go through this. What are you going to give now? You're going to give a 60-40 offer for the UK? If he doesn't give a 60-40 offer to the UK, that's just even giving a 60-40 offer for the UK. What kind of advisor would do that? That makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, I want 60%. Instead of making $50 million, I'm going to take the same danger because it doesn't really matter where Deontay Wilder hits you in the head. Unless, of course, you're going to have, your ref there, the one that's basically going to take a point away from Deontay Wilder for throwing a punch, right? Unless you have one of the most blatant, fixed referees that you could possibly have, which honestly, I wouldn't put past them. Because that Joseph Parker referee was on something special, boy. And the one with Carlos Takam. And the judges. And the judges with those score cards for Joseph Parker were on something. But all of that said, it still might not be enough if you get knocked unconscious. And I used to say that I didn't know who would win that fight. But the way that Anthony Joshua's going, that's the only logical explanation for it at all. So I hope that this fight happens. I used to hope that this fight happens. Right now, man, I'm at the point with Anthony Joshua where I've lost, as far as him as a boxer, lost 90% of the respect I had for him. 90% of the respect. Deontay Wilder said something about, how could you allow somebody to take that away from you? Speaking of Anthony Joshua, like, how could you get advised? How could you let your advisor move you away from a situation where you have enough money, you make enough money to walk away from the sport? The whole purpose of being a professional prize fighter is to get enough money where you can retire and choose whether or not you're going to take bombs upside the head from people. Because that's what happens at the heavyweight division at one point or another. And Deontay Wilder was just dead on with that, man. And I love listening to it from Deontay Wilder because I have my thoughts about it. Just, common sense things like, if somebody offered you, if you're making $200,000 a year, and then somebody comes by and says, "Hey, I'll pay you $400,000 for the same work," you take that job. Period. And somebody that would tell you, "No, don't do it. Just, turn the money down and continue to work for me. And by the way, I'm going to take 15% of your money for my promotional fee and whatever else. Just stay with me because really you're not good enough. You'll fail at that job. You'll fail at that job. And you're used to working in an environment where everybody loves you. That's way too much pressure over there. You don't want to do that. I mean, whatever the analogy is, just name an analogy for some for a good job offer being turned down to keep the one that you have. And Anthony Joshua has a good job, without a doubt. But just come on, let's be real. And why I'm loving when UK fans come to the channel and they say, "Look, man, I'm an AJ fan, but honestly, this is ridiculous. There's just no way around it. The guy is he's behaving in a highly inappropriate manner. His contradictions are just he's contradicting himself. To say that you want $50 million and that you're going to sign the contract, and now you're saying, I don't want to fight in the U.S. under some watered-down U.S. crowd. I mean, how do you get from one to the other without being a punk? I mean, what road is there between saying you'll fight somebody for $50 million guaranteed, and then them showing up with the money, and then you turning it down and saying, "No, I don't really want to fight for that much money. I want to fight. I want to fight in front of my friends. I just need my friends around me. I need my friends. They got to hold my hand and walk me into the ring. And I'm so used to everybody cheering for me and having my name in flames. All of that. That's really what I need. I just need that sense of security." How do you do that without being a punk, man? Just for real. How do you get from one to the other? And it all started with this nonsense with 8812. I'm talking like this on this video really because I'm sitting on a vacation with my family and I'm reading this stuff and nobody else is really keeping track of it that tight. And honestly, there's not a lot of people on YouTube or in the boxing community, in the YouTube boxing forum world, whatever you want to call it, because I'm not talking about just the LDBC or the YTBC, that are really watching it that closely to see how many times this guy has waffled and how ridiculous this whole thing is. That fight should have been done, locked up, and done right after the Joseph Parker fight. But that couldn't be because Anthony Joshua said that he was going to freeze out Deontay Wilder and he wouldn't let him in the ring with him. So you just lay off so many things that this dude has done that makes him look like a absolute idiot or like he's scared. How can I do anything but come to the conclusion that you're scared? You wouldn't let him in the ring. You said, "It's not my ring. I don't want to look him in his eye. I'm not into hyping this fight." 2, then you say, if you keep yapping your lips, I'll freeze you out. Then 4, then the next one is you lowball him with an 88-12 offer. Then you lie and say that it's not $100 million. That's really 40, whatever. We won't get into that, right? Then you say, "Well, yeah, I would take that, and I would take that offer. We have a great offer. I would jump at that if I was him." So he gives you the same offer, but way better. essentially the same thing that you're asking for, then you won't take that, right? And then you say, oh, well, I don't want to fight in America in front of these little crowds. And you also say that you don't want to do press tours, but yet you come to the U.S. and do a press tour. I mean, how can you come to any other conclusion than what Deontay Wilder came up with? That this is a manufactured champion. He said a made champion. I'm gonna say it's a manufactured champion, a media promoter created corporate monster. But all that stuff goes away with one good crisp right hand to the chin, and they know it. So anyway, it is what it is, and I'm out. Peace.